So welcome everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. This is Monday, October 16th, 2023, and the reason we're doing this is we want to talk to the community about one of the questions that you will have on the ballot on November 7th. And that has to do with our Capital Improvements Reserve Fund levy. And we want you to fully understand it, be able to ask questions, so we'll start. So my name is Connie Boyer. I'm mayor here in Fairfield, and on my right is our city administrator, Doug Reinert, and on my left is Melanie Carlson, our city engineer and public works director. So let's just get right into this. Well, first of all, we're going to talk about for short, we call it the CIRF levy. Again, Capital Improvements Reserve Fund levy. And we'll also talk about taxable valuations versus assessed valuations. We have a spreadsheet ready to show you that looks at the levy for the city and some information like that to help you again understand kind of where we've been over the last 10 years, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions. None of us have really been here over the last 10 years, so but we do have quite a bit of information, so hopefully we'll be able to ask all your questions. So let's just get into this levy and what it means, how long we've had it. So let's just talk about why we have it. Melanie, you want to talk about what do we use it for? Why do we have it?
Yep. So the CIRF levy, why the city decided to implement it, we found records that I think it was voted on actually in 1997. Why exactly the city had it then, we don't have a specific reason, but we know that the city always has projects going on, always has needs. We're an oldish city, but old relative to Iowa standards, so we have a lot of needs. And what's great about the Capital Improvements Reserve Fund, even though it doesn't produce a huge amount of money, is that it is flexible in its uses, but yet limited. That the taxpayers can be assured that it's going towards a project. So it is limited to capital improvements, meaning that it can't go towards salaries or utilities, utility payments, or anything like that. But it's flexible in the sense that it can go to any of our departments. Historically, the city has used it for streets projects. I do know, talking to former Mayor Ed Malloy, that when this was voted on 10 years ago, that was a big push initiative with the fund. And the city was doing a lot of streets at that time, had done a bond around that time as well. And the CIRF was going towards those streets and perhaps that bond payment. What I will say, kind of the thought process that we have had the last couple years, as I have been looking into our capital needs. So I will just kind of, since you are going to be talking about the budget a little bit later, so each year I put together a Capital Improvements Reserve Plan, or CIP, and this includes all of the capital projects that we have budgeted for the fiscal year, as well as the estimated projects for the next the following 4 years. As part of that, I have a capital assets list, which is a rough list of all of the things the city owns: the trucks, the HVAC systems, the playground equipment, the things that cost us money when they break down. And we try to estimate when those are going to fail or need replacement. And, we use that list to then do our capital improvements. And so circling back into the CIRF, what we've been doing the last couple years is using that CIRF for projects that are touching multiple departments. And unfortunately, a couple things that kind of caught us by surprise. I'll talk about that in a minute. But, we have, we'd like to, in the future, use CIRF for the road at Waterworks, as well as the parking lot and the entrance to O.B. Nelson. You know, it's a park, but it's also a road, and that way it can kind of benefit the budget on multiple departments, but still helping the community as a whole. So that's a little bit different mindset than what the CIRF has been used in the past, but we definitely, I definitely have a method to my madness in deciding or in recommending to the council what CIRF is being used for.
Right, great. And I just want to note that in the last few years, this capital improvements document that she has been really tremendously helpful for the council to look ahead and make sure they understand what's needed in the future. And along with our comprehensive plan that looks out even further than 5 years. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we know, streets has been a big issue for the community. So much so that I don't remember which year this was, but when the local option sales tax also was changed for what that money could be used for, 50% of that money is going towards streets because, you know, we were behind at one point. So we are trying to catch up. And I will have from time to time somebody call me and say, hey, my street's bad. When are you going to fix it? And I'll say, I generally don't know. So I'll come to Melanie and say, hey, when is that street scheduled to be resurfaced? And so we'll look on this document and determine if that's in the next 5 years. And if it's not in the next 5 years, is there a patch that we can, you know, fix and get it to last a little bit longer? So again, streets has been a very important part of this levy. And let's go ahead.
And I was going to say, it's still, it has been, and it still is an important part of the levy. And I was just looking at, I have a list of the projects that it's been used for over the last 10 years. And the last 5 years has been when we started to use it for other projects. But in the last 5 years, 60% of the CIRF funds have still been used on street projects.
Okay.
So it's still a large portion of it. We've seen some to parks, some to library, and some to fire then in the last 5 years.
So at the library, we did, what was it, the HVAC system?
It's budgeted for the fiscal year that we're currently
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's coming up.
that we're currently in for the controls of the controls of the
Right.
HVAC system. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these past projects that we have used it for.
Yeah. Well, I had mentioned about some projects that kind of caught us off guard, and I will never forget the council's face. Oh, you can, leave the O.B. Nelson. I'll never forget the council's face when I told him that the Partners for Play was 25 years old. You weren't mayor at that time, but I think Katie Anderson looked at me and was, huh? What? And I said, well, no, Katie, how old are your children? So, Partners for Play was a great example of community support. But everything gets old and breaks down. And because we hadn't been doing a capital assets list and keeping track of the age of some of these things, Partners for Play kind of snuck up on us. I mean, we knew it was needing maintenance, but we didn't realize how old it actually was until we had the capital assets list. And so we hadn't been, for a playground of that size, we should have been earmarking money for 10 years prior to taking it down to completely rebuild it. We had discussed when we tore it down to completely rebuild it the way it was would have been $500,000. And the city just didn't have that money when it came time. So what we were able to do through the CIRF money was we were able to put up what we have out there right now, which is a starting piece in everyone's mind. But we were able to put up a fairly decent chunk. I mean, again, it's not what was there. We acknowledge that. But we were able to put up a fairly decent chunk that we couldn't have otherwise without CIRF, because it's a fund that is fairly flexible and allowed us to use it in parks. Yeah. And get that replacement.
And Calvin has, going forward, budgeted certain amounts of money here for the next few years to be able to add on to this and have a bigger playground down there, because we know all the kids love that playground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he has some out of Lost. He has some money budgeted for Waterworks this year, Heritage Park the next year, and then I think he'll start working on adding to those systems.
Great.
So, yep. So yeah, some of the other, other than Obie Nelson Playground, we funded the demolition of the DOT buildings in preparation of the fire station. When we did the budgets last year, we knew we had done the analysis that the buildings weren't going to be salvageable, but we don't have the funding sources all wrapped up for the construction of the fire station. But we could use again this CIRF to get us started on that project. Okay. Prior to that, we've done snowplow equipment for the airport. We've needed to purchase a truck for the street department. And then lots and lots of streets. There's seal coats are what we use on streets that are lower volume, a lot of our residential streets, typically ones without curb and gutter. Those would be your seal coats. We've done asphalt overlays to streets. We've done that a lot in the kind of northwest part of town. We've done some asphalt overlay of seal coat streets, which has held up really well. We've done some larger construction projects in the last 5 years, including paying for the city's portion of 227th Street, which is the road in front of the DOT and the new industrial park. So that was a great combined city, county, and then there was some state grants all involved in that. And so the city used the CIRF to pay for that.
okay.
So again, maintenance items and some development there with that 227th project.
And do you want to mention again some other things that are coming up over the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, and
We mentioned the library heating and AC control, so that's coming up.
yeah, so then also in this fiscal year, we have money budgeted towards a building out at the streets department, and street department's doing a great job using every dollar that they can. They are having a company come in and put up the shell of the building, but then they'll be doing the concrete work. And this is a building to make sure that all of their equipment is is inside a building rather than sitting outside. So a portion of the CIRF is going towards that. In the future, again, depending, this is my recommendation. The council will agree to this, and obviously the levy needs to pass for this to happen. We have the resurfacing of Waterworks Road, resurfacing of the road out to the airport. This would be like the lane to the airport, not the county road, but the road that goes towards the airport. I know you would like to see it, and I would like to see one of the, we have 2 downtown parking lots that are still gravel-esque.
Is that a word?
That we would like to see get resurfaced, and so pending other needs, that would be something that we would like to see with the CIRF. And then another big need that's kind of hanging out there that we know about, we're going to apply for some grants, but then our downtown traffic signals. We removed the one at 2nd and Broadway because it's not as needed as it was, and traffic signals are $300,000 or more an intersection. But with this levy produces around $240,000 a year, and we know we're going to need this traffic light at Main and Burlington. So this levy would be a great place to use that, because again, those are big ticket items. They haven't caught us off guard, but they're not in our everyday expenses.
So let's talk about the levy, how much it is, and we're not proposing to change it, right? It's 67 cents, I believe.
67.5.
Okay.
Yep.
Per thousand.
Yes, of taxable value.
Yep.
That's what it was in 2013. That is the max that's allowed by the state law. and that's what we have on the levy, or that's what's on the ballot again.
Right.
So, and what was voted in 2013 expires this year. So, a positive vote of this would not increase the levy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so you can see, I mean, even the last 10 years, well, let's just say the last 3 or 4 years, inflation has really hit everyone in their pocketbook. And so the fact that this is not being raised, but all the expenses are much higher, you could see if it was not passed, it would be very challenging for the city to meet its needs without this levy. So, you know, we're hoping that you're open to it and will positively vote yes for it. So, because it would be significant to squish everything into a just regular budget. Anything else you want to add to what we've already talked about? And are there any questions from the audience at this point? Anybody that's here? Is this microphone on? Yeah. Elizabeth, you want to come up to the microphone and you can ask the question so people that are watching online can hear.
I was just kind of curious, does it intentionally sunset, or is that something that you've worked into the levy itself, or can you have it just be perpetual? If there's a rational, reason behind those choices.
So state law requires, so the state law that governs this, in case anyone is a law nerd.
I was just looking at the statute, Melanie. So curious.
Iowa Code 384.7, and that our Allers and Cooney, our lawyers for this type of thing, says that we have to have a sunset. But the council can set that sunset. So in the past, the city has had a 10-year sunset. In this year, this one, the council set a 25-year. The thought being that's roughly a generation, and that this has been so important to the city to meet its needs. And since they were allowed to be flexible with it, and we have to set a sunset, that's why the council went with that one.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Good question. So let's kind of move into assessed valuation versus taxable valuation, because sometimes there's a little confusion on that. So, Doug, you want to talk about that?
So, as we may have discussed or read, that we actually have a rollback, and the way that's calculated for our assessed valuation is we're evaluated with 16.9, and if you have $100,000 house, then with a rollback calculated, they would assess $56,942 onto that. So then calculating that would give you paying $962.31 per year divided by 12 would roughly be $79.56 a month on your mortgage payment that goes into property taxes. A lot of municipalities, they operate off of sales tax. In Iowa, we operate primarily off of tax levies. With the CIRF at 0.675, there would be $3.20 of that valuation per month goes to this CIRF levy. So it's just a small piece of what you're paying in to have all of this infrastructure brought back to the way it should be. And we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah. So again, and that's important to know that the state legislature decides that rollback. They're telling us how much they're going to roll back. And so, and there's some things going on now at the state legislature. They are consolidating some of the levies. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think all municipalities are a little concerned about that, how that's going to play out. So, it's a little bit of an unknown right now. So, you want to add something to that?
Well, there's a lot of concerns out there. Everyone has a lot of concerns about the budgets and where money's going, and we totally get that. And Doug and I and Rebecca, our city clerk, we welcome the questions, and I'm sure you too. So I didn't mean to leave you out.
No.
We're doing everything we can with the dollars that we have. And if you have a question about where the money's going, where it's coming from, we want to answer those questions because, we don't have anything to hide. We're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can. So, ask us the questions. If you don't want to ask it tonight, that's fine. But if you have questions between now and the levy, or the vote, we can answer it. As we get into budget season, ask us the questions. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And I just want to note that this year, people did get their assessed valuation statements, and yes, they were significantly increased. That doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to increase like that. So that's where we have to talk about assessed valuation versus taxable valuation. So it's really clear to be able to understand those two. So, so let's talk about, Jason, if you wouldn't mind putting up the spreadsheet that we had. I put together a spreadsheet. What you'll see on this, the top graph is our actual levy, the city's levy per thousand. So again, this doesn't take into account a county, school, hospital, and there's a couple other little levies. This is just the City of Fairfield. So this goes back to fiscal year 2013. And you can see, I think we started at 15 something. I can't read it from here.
15.84.
Okay, 15.84. And you can see in 2015 it bumped up. And my understanding is at that time we took on some additional debt. And then you can see that I think some of that debt has come off again. And it took a dip and it's gone up a little bit more again, most recently. So overall, that was about a 6% increase. So not so bad considering inflation. And Doug, you had the figure of how much in dollars?
It was about 1 point. So from the years from 2013 to 2024, the operating budget has increased about $1.4 million. And, over a decade, that's not, for a municipality standpoint of operating funds, is not significant. At 6%, it's still relatively flat. And you're actually getting a bigger bang for your dollar because although that the levies have increased 6%, the total operating budget has increased by 33%. So we have actually done, by everybody doing their part by just a little bit, has given us a larger gain.
Great, thank you. And one of the things to note, and it's not on here. Oh, by the way, I didn't say this. The bottom is the actual dollars collected that the city collected. So that's the bottom graph you see there. So it's pretty steady. And one of the things to note, and this.
Do you want to come up, Marge?
Doug, did I hear you say that the city levy went up 6%, but the city operating budget over the 10 years went up 36%?
33%. So
Still.
that $1.4 million.
Yeah.
And if you compare that with the $4.1 million, if you look at 2013, and then you subtract the $5.6 million, and I mean, you get your calculator, you can do that math, and then divide that in there, you're only, the levies themselves, if you go from 15.8% to 16.9%, and you do that math, you'll see an increase of 6%. But then you actually, the overall operating budget is 33%.
That's
Makes
not
sense?
right. That's 3%.
No.
Right?
That seems like a lot.
Try again.
So
No, I'm
yeah,
pretty
unless
sure.
we did the math wrong.
Yeah.
So, but also I want to note that in that time frame,
We can
you've
do it,
had valuations go up, right? So those have gone
Can you
up.
get it? Can you see it? I can't even see it.
Barely.
At
Anyway,
any
continue.
rate, so where these numbers come from, so you can look them up yourselves, is the Department of Management at the state level. So you can go right there and you can go see the counties, the hospital, and the schools. So, and also one thing that we looked up was our ranking compared to, other cities in some in Southeast Iowa that are kind of normal, or similar to size of Fairfield. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, and so what I looked up was the consolidated rates, which would include the city, school, Indian Hills,
County,
hospital.
Yeah.
And I guess just what I found interesting is, although we're in the top 20%, but even though our levy has gone down our levy has gone up over the last 3 years, our ranking has actually gone down over the last couple years. And I know some of this is in part to the school debt rolling off, but I think that's showing that all of the entities are being fiscally responsible. That we're doing what we can with the funds that we have. That yes, our levy had to go up, but maybe didn't have to go up quite as much as some other areas did. It's I didn't look into all the other cities' budgets, but that's just a thought that I had looking at those numbers.
Yeah, we kind of just wanted to see what do we look like compared to Iowa as a whole, and
our consolidated rates were lower than Mount Pleasant, Keokuk, and what was the other county seat town? Bloomfield. So,
and was Ottumwa in there?
Yep, we were lower, but
so that's all good news, I think. So, anything else to add about that? Any questions on this? Okay.
Yeah,
Verify that number.
those were the numbers I got. That line looks a lot flatter than 33%, but I think it must be the scale.
It is. It's over a decade.
Yeah.
So it's a very gradual incline.
33% over a decade, though, is 3% a year.
Yeah.
It's not much.
Yeah. So think of inflation. Inflation historically has been around 3%. So even though this last couple years has been more painful. So. All righty. So I think that's, again, I expected this to last maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, depending on how questions. Jason, did we have any questions online? Okay. Great. So again, we hope that helps explain what's going on. And if you have more questions, please let us know. Come to City Hall, give us a call. Marg, you want to come to the mic? Sorry.
Do you get to say how it shows up on the ballot? Or is there stock language that you have to use?
We do have say with advice from our lawyers, but we have to set that several weeks ahead of time. So we have already set that language.
Did you set the language to say to renew it, or?
You might not have been here when we already discussed that question. So our lawyers said that we had to set a sunset, and so we set it for 25 years.
Right, but did you ask for the voters to renew the existing levy? Or did you present it as if it's a new levy? Because it's not a new levy, really.
Right.
It's not.
I'm looking at our city clerk to see if she knows the answer to that. Okay.
It seems like that would be more palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if it doesn't.
Okay.
Let's get the right wording so we can put it. We can put it on our Facebook page.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Yeah, it's a good question and one we didn't anticipate. So apologize for that.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah, so we will post that so it's really clear. And again, we hope the community will give us a positive vote on that. So.
All right.
Okay, with that, I think we'll end and appreciate people coming. And again, if you have more questions, let us know. Send us email, drop in. And thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Doug.
You bet.